Hey everybody, welcome to The Challenge podcast with John Chapman. I am John Chapman. I'm the voice of one crying in the wilderness, and we're going to do a continuation today. Last podcast, I just feel like we just didn't have enough time. There's so much to talk about this, and it is, I think, incumbent upon us to continue to talk about vaccines, to continue to talk about some results of the vaccines, even the struggles during the vaccine mandates that were coming out, and what are the vaccines, why did they come out, why is it an issue now, is it just politics, is it really science, isn't it science, is it God blessing man with science, or is God have nothing to do with it, or where does God's role in this? I'd like to thank you, Bob, for being in studio today again. Glenn was able to join us today too, so this is going to be, I might just shut my computer and let you two go. Oh, no. It's kind of like that, I think. It could be something a little like that. And but for those of you following us too, make sure you like and share this, and like and follow this, and let other people know about this conversation. I have found more often than not that when I strike up these conversations with people I've never met, yes, you're going to find people that's like, that's odd, that's crazy. But I'm bumping into more and more people. It's like, I don't meet people that talk about this, and that's necessary. That's part of why we're doing this. So not only bringing religion and politics together, but bringing religion and politic science. I don't know if that's political science or not when we're talking about if that really is, but I think there's something to that. So, guys, good to have you with today. Bob, I don't even know where we left off last time, but if we would have had microphones in this room after the show, I would have recorded all that too. But I know we were talking about how you kind of ended up in the industry, but actually, to me, I was thinking about this today. To me, I'm going to share a little story first to tie this together, because something happened important in our ministry, and I'm going to lead. That's why I'm going to lead it off with that. That actually brought, in a way, the three of us together in a way I'm not sure we would ever have known again. And we'd kind of bumped into each other at radio again, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. And that was a lot of fun, man. When you'd be flying in, but you were able to be in Des Moines, and boom, we got you on the radio. And Bob, you're always there. The Greek, and we were always going to the Greek, and that was a ton of fun. I realized it's not, when I say this as a pastor, what I should say, it's just somebody who's responsible for telling people the truth, because the bearing it feels heavy sometimes in regards to that, especially when people are looking. It could be 10 people, could be 1,000 people, and the COVID year was underway, and then it was entering into the next part, and I was getting a lot of information. I was getting tons of opinions from lots of people, from the church, from leadership. And I'd almost forgotten that the most important knowledge I need is the wisdom that comes from the Holy Spirit. And nobody was being difficult, but everybody had a different thought. And maybe you guys sense this in your own being around believers and unbelievers, so that you got in your congregations, and some people are like, doggone, if we don't do what Joe Biden says, we're going to hell. I mean, I'm exaggerating, of course, but it's like the feeling. And others were like, no, you can't touch this. This is the sign of man, and we're all going to die, and all this kind of stuff. And so when people are talking to their ministers and stuff, they're looking for some truth, and it was bearing a lot of weight. And this is what I did. I left the city of Des Moines, and I said, it's time for me to get away. It's time for me to take a ride. And I grabbed one of my motorcycles, took off to Nebraska, of all places, by recommendation of one of the elders, one of my most thoughtful elders, just said, you need to go get from the Lord. There's a lot of information here, but you need to go hear from God. It took me over 2 days just to get my brain shut down. And then on day 3, I felt like I was in a place of peace. And I didn't feel like the Lord was saying anything specifically to me yet, but I felt like finally I can just read my Bible without pressure, without the opinions and stuff. And while I was on that trip, I broke a tooth eating popcorn out of a bag from a local grocer, because I'm getting old and my teeth just break, it seems like, all the darn time. And I had to come home, and I quickly drove home to Des Moines, called my dentist, who got me in the following day, did a quick repair, and I grabbed my other motorcycle and took off the other motorcycle because it's got some heated features on it, and it was October, and I went up to Minnesota. So I was planning ahead, and I went up to Minnesota And there I stayed 2 nights looking to talk with another ministry that I've been praying about meeting up with. And the guy that I've been wanting to talk with for the last 3 years was gone. He had left. And one morning in that room, I had my Bible out and was starting to pray and just say, Lord, I just felt like my spirit was settled. My mind was cleared. And I was aware of some of the things, Bob. We'd already started to talk a little bit about some things that would work instead of running to a vaccine, some health measures and stuff. And I was combating that a little bit because I wasn't, just to be honest with you, I was going, well, I don't know if all the information I'm getting, I have to make some decisions. And the Holy Spirit said just simply this: have Bob come to your men's group and your church and share his protocols. I got one thing out of the 6 days. And I'm telling you what, some of the most valuable 6 days I've ever had. Because what happened next is exactly what you did. I called you. I got back and I had I had an elder and another fellow in the men's ministries approach me. I was there a couple of days and they said, hey, have you ever thought about having Bob come and talk? And I went, that's one. Right? You're looking for three points of confirmation. That was number 2, technically, the Holy Spirit first. And then an elder of the church walked up to me, along with this other person in the body of Christ, on 2 different days and said, hey, have you ever thought about having Bob come and talk about, some of these protocols and stuff he's talking about? And I went, that's it. And I texted you. I went, that's the Lord. And the reason I say that is you can't leave the living Savior who dwells within you in the Holy Spirit out of the conversations and expect to arrive at peace and truth. And I needed that. So we did. You came in the men's group. It was awesome. You brought in the protocols, and you're welcome to talk about that a little bit too. And you brought it in, and then we were sharing those protocols, and you were over in Illinois, communist, the social communist Republic of Illinois. And then you got those protocols, but you took it to a whole nother level. And maybe this would be that time too. So, Bob, what were you thinking? I mean, when I got a hold of you, it was like, hey, Bob, I didn't say, I said, oh, man, the Holy Spirit, he talked to me on the motorcycle, man, and this has got to be God. And I just called you and said, would you do this? And what'd you do? What'd you bring forth in us? It began something for us.
Well, I was thrilled, to do it, because it's one of those things that we have been so trained or brainwashed that we need to trust the science and believe the doctors and, the medical system. And that's how we're kind of raised. You're sick, you go run to the doctor, and they give you drugs. And early in my life, I did not eat well. I knew nothing about nutrition. And because of that, I don't even want to talk about the restaurant I used to frequent, but there were a lot of fried food. And then I had real issues because I became jaundiced. The eyes were yellow. I was turning yellow. And my gallbladder was full of stones. And my bile ducts were blocked by stones. So I had to go through major abdominal, opened that up, went into the duodenum, which is just below the stomach. Since I'm a biology guy, I know this stuff.
We'll get it figured out later, whatever it was you just said. That's it.
And they had to physically go in and pull the stones out. And I was in the hospital for like 10 days.
Oh, wow.
In recovery. And I said, something has to change. I'm doing something wrong. And I think there's a time when everybody comes to that point, and it all depends on when that happens. Usually if it's an illness or a heart attack or stroke, what's wrong? What am I going to do now? But I decided not to do the medical, but to learn about natural ways of healing. And I totally believe the Lord directed me there. And back when I was at the University of Missouri, there was this doctor, Joe Wallach, and he's still out there. He's the mineral doctor, and he started talking about the importance of minerals, trace minerals, that's not in our soil anymore, and you need to do that. And he knew about eating Jell-O because they didn't have glucosamine and chondroitin in a tablet form, so you can get it out of Jell-O, which is made from animal hooves.
I love Jell-O.
And so I started looking into that and training with that. So, and then because I was on the DMORT team, I think I spoke about that. I don't remember if I did or not. But
a little bit, yep. You were part of the DMORT team.
Okay, yeah. And they required, all the vaccines, which I would take, the tetanus and, even working in the crime lab, right. Hepatitis B and A, and taking all those, vaccinations. And then I knew that when I took the flu shot, I'd always get the flu. Every year I'd take it, and then I'd get it. And so I got to the point where I said, well, I'm going to just quit the team, and I'm going to call my AO officer and say, sorry, John, I'm going to quit the team because I'm not taking these vax anymore. He goes, well, we don't want you to do that. So just go into your folder, on the federal deal, and next to your name, write exempt for flu. I said, that's it? He goes, yeah, nobody checks it. And, so you're exempt. I said, okay. And so I wouldn't take it anymore. And then I wouldn't get sick. So I'm not the only one in there. I know many other people that have, they get it and they get sick. Some people do, some people don't.
Sure.
Everybody's a little different. And so I stopped doing that. And so that, again, I wanted to learn, even with stress management, because I got into stress management after the plane crash in Sioux City, 1989, when I was impacted mentally. So I experienced, a lot of people would know what PTSD. I don't believe I had that, but you can still have those symptoms for a while. And so I wanted to learn. And part of that learning was based on nutrition. Your nutrition, your gut will help your brain. And so you've got to start living the right way. So eating, as many organic foods as you can. I'm into fasting because I studied fasting. And fasting gives your body time to regenerate and fix things. And so I eat during an 8-hour window and fast for 16 hours every day. There's some days, if somebody invites me out for dinner or something, okay. But for the most part, it's easy to get back in. And it's not hard to do. Sometimes we eat because we're nervous or we're stressed, and we're not hungry. We just keep feeding the face.
Right.
And if you don't read labels, and I've been teaching people, read labels. If you see a label in small print and it's that long, don't eat it. If you can't pronounce words, don't eat it. So it's...
yeah, right.
It's all of that. If you know that they have antifreeze in there, you don't want to have antifreeze in your body. Yeah. I'm not joking, but I'm just saying there are many chemicals in there. And so chemicals in your water, chemicals in your air, all of these things. And for me, I just started directing my studies towards that. And it's overwhelming when you look at that and how toxic we are and how toxic the world is. And so, the answer for science is make billions of dollars by convincing people that these drugs that are not natural for your body are going to help you. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying all drugs are bad, because there are drugs like ivermectin, fenbendazole that they're finding it's antiparasitic, but it's also helps cure cancer. So, and if you injure yourself, you don't want the pain. So you're going to take a narcotic if necessary, along with stool softeners. I learned that one too.
Noted.
And so, but to temporarily get you past that. Yeah. But you can heal from that and regenerate your body. So, it was just a long time of experiencing health issues and wanting more than just taking drugs, because drugs generally cover symptoms, not getting to the root cause. And the root cause is that we're not eating right. So what you eat makes a difference in your health. And you get down also to the soils. They're depleted of minerals and many things that our bodies need because we use them over. They don't have time to rest. They're all being sprayed with glyphosate and all other insecticides, herbicides that get into our food. And so you can't avoid it. It's everywhere, okay? So you can't avoid it. So what do? You have to detox your body, get the stuff out. And so there are many ways you can do that. There are different herbs, and all things that the Lord has given us right from the beginning, to keep us healthy in the foods that He's provided for us. And we're learning more and more about those foods. And many of the drugs that are being made are based on foods. But you can't patent food. You can't patent plants. So you have to change it a little bit and alter it. Well, your body doesn't like that. Doesn't agree with it.
Right. I didn't even originally want. Well, this is going to take us down another vein here in a minute because just because of what's going on, the depletion of the soils and things like that. And I want to say to people, when we were growing up, there was that little football pill. We called it the foot. I remember calling it the football pill, little brown football. We could have called it the rabbit turd pill for that matter. It's just what it looked like. And I think I don't know. It's the internet, so we should be okay. Vitamin C. And we would take that every morning. Mom would throw that at us, we'd eat with our cereal or whatever. And then I remember as I was growing up, the people that I would hear from most in regards to vitamins and health and all that kind of stuff, I don't know why I did, but I had somewhat of a stigma against that because I was like, okay, easy everybody, all you natural nuts, and nuts are natural. Careful now, everybody. Just don't go over the top. Like this is just, you're starting to sound like Save the Tree people and Save the Whale. And categorically, for whatever reason, that starts to get into your mind that way. COVID-19 was like a train wreck. 2 train engines that hit each other that all of a sudden forced some stuff. Mm-hmm. And I've had to just tell the Lord, forgive me for criticizing where I didn't have understanding because it caused an initial resistance to what actually ended up helping the most. And I'll even testify right here, and I don't see it another way, saved my wife's life. So we get this information, and my brother here is, our mom is in that category, right? I'm old. She's not. I don't know if she's going to hear this now. Sorry, Mom. She's in that age where you're considering these things, right. And you. I don't know if you came to Des Moines or what it was, but I came over to Mom's and you had visited her, and she said, "Well, Glenn just printed these sheets off from I don't know which whether it was Walgreens or." Who it was, but you printed off the sheets about what this was because everything was hey, this will keep everything was saying this will keep you from getting COVID-19. That's how it was first promoted. This will keep you from getting it, and this will keep you from transmitting it. And so you handed Mom the documents. So I went over to visit Mom. She goes, "Oh, your brother gave me these documents," and so I started reading through the documents, and bro, my blood started to boil. I want to hand the baton to you there because that started something. This train that collided needed something like this, but you seem to activate that way.
Well, the interesting thing along those lines is, Bob will remember this as well, is that this wasn't some hidden, protocol. Right. This is what the federal government required for any EUA drug to be authorized. So just a quick historic note, when President Biden was in place, and I don't know if you guys remember, the very first month of his term, he said, well, vaccine mandates won't be forthcoming. They won't be forthcoming because we know we've got some EAU vaccines that are on the way. And I told my wife right out of the gate that they'll be here by the end of the year.
Really?
Oh, yeah, all day long. I've done enough research on vaccines and global affairs to know they'll be here at the end of the year. So my problem was, what am I going to do? Because my company will require it. And sure enough, they did. And that's probably another story for another time. But by this time, I had been in touch with Bob. And I remember the first conversation we had, it might have been after a one-man men's group.
Yep.
And I think it might even have been at the park that we meet at.
And that's the men's group where we had him come and speak. So,
yeah. And Bob had told me how strong his marriage was. Because he was going to experiment on a breathing treatment when his wife got COVID. And I said, well, clearly you're here, Bob, in one piece, so it must have worked. So
Mrs. Guinea.
this is the first that I had heard. I knew things were coming down the road, but I was not prepared for how to deal with it. And then Bob had told me about some of these extra treatments that might be possible. And so I remember the very first time I employed that with a good friend of mine that lives in Jacksonville, Florida. And I might even had Bob call him. I know I put the two of them in contact with each other at some point right out of the gate. So that started it for me. Then I realized, holy smokes, we've actually got something here that could significantly help when the mandates come and other things like that come. And so then I just looked at the CDC website and I said, okay, what can they do? You know, the vaccines are coming. By the way, they do this, and that's what really got me fired up was it did none of those things. In fact, none of the reports, the fact sheets from the drug manufacturers said that they did. But that's not what the White House was saying. That's not what the media was saying. And so the fact that I saw this complete disparity between the reality of the published documents, and these are the documents you read from the drug manufacturer, and what the media and the White House was saying, I went, oh boy, it's going to get rough.
What's wrong with, one, mandates from the federal government, but two, what's wrong with the notion of saving lives and requiring it?
Oh boy. We could go a million miles, you know. I'll just.
That was a loaded question. I know. I put 5 rounds in that bad boy. So
it's
because that speaks to what we had to deal with in this. It wasn't just health. It was like, wait a minute, there's something else. So.
It's like it's like, okay, you're in this relationship, and one of the people in the relationship is abusive, and has been as far as you can remember, and all of a sudden they're not. And they've got this great idea to make you better and help you out. I knew right away when the government took that position, I was like, oh, okay, something's dreadfully wrong. Because that's my abusive relationship partner is the federal government. And all of a sudden, they've got this great idea about how to improve my health. I went, oh, no. Something's drastically wrong about this. And that sent me down some other trails, looking at some of the content that they were promoting, what was actually happening with some of this stuff. And I'm sure Bob will have some things along those lines as well. But for me, that was the biggest jump start to implementing some of the protocols that Bob will speak about with people that I knew that were suffering from this. And it also helped me with some of the conversation with my colleagues, because I'm sure you guys are the same way, right? Yeah, you're the criminal if you're not helping old people take vaccines. Right. I got family that thought I was a criminal and so this gave me another way to say, well, have you looked at this? Right. Have you looked at the fact sheet from the manufacturer? And it was hidden in plain sight. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most unnerving years of my life. I want to say 2021, 22, just to see what was actually going on with the propaganda and the lies. And so thankfully, Bob, that poor guy, I was on the phone all the time to the poor guy, just like, hey, Bob, what about this? I don't understand this. And he was very gracious in accepting my calls and sending me the right direction. So yeah, that was the political aspect of it. The understanding that this wasn't best for me at all or anybody, and then finally having an outlet where I could help people in case there was trouble, that kind of turned things around for me personally, and also in the political realm to get things going the other direction.
Yeah. When I read those copies that you'd printed off for our mother and read in there, because all the news media, presidents, everybody was saying this is going to help, it's going to stop it from transferring, it's going to stop you from getting it. So you printed this off, and honestly, it made me think, as much media as I'd seen, is that Pfizer was lying. But this is required by law for the manufacturers to say what this product is and does. And it said over 4 times in the pages, this does not stop you from getting it, nor does it stop the transfer. You had to read the documents, and it said it very specifically. This drug does not. This vaccine does not stop it and does not stop the spread of it. And also, it said over and over in it, it said approved under EUA, Emergency Use Authority. And it said it throughout it. And like you, there's this collision that's going on. So, all right, the government's saying this, and they're saying we should do this. And our own governor, fairly far-right governor, was setting up the camps for the National Guard to come in, and you could come and get tested. And then she was saying, you know what, this can reduce. And she recommended it. I do remember she recommended it. What I never heard come out of her mouth is, as many politicians were saying, even some politicians were saying, well, this is recommended, but we would never mandate it. And other politicians were saying, you're filled with hatred and murder if you don't mandate. And so this is where that mass collision happens. And so the thing for me is that when I started talking with people and say, well, have you read Pfizer's or have you read the approval of the vaccines or their paperwork? And so I would read it to them. And I'm serious. They would say, well, I don't stinking care. Do you understand this is lives at stake? And I look at them and I say, do you understand the government stared at you with a smile and bold-faced lied to you? You're good with that. You're okay. I mean, I just told you it doesn't transfer, but you're saying we need to save lives because it does protect against transferal. All of a sudden, this is when the lie became so true. People didn't care what the truth was because now it was a matter of being right or righteous in the sight of men. And that's when I easily departed. And after that, Bob, listening to you discuss the importance of healthy eating, but also just had a great vitamin routine that you brought to the guys, the nebulizer operation, which I still use on a regular basis. And I've testified to you earlier last year. I said, I'm still healthier than I have been in decades, just eating better and taking a strong regimen of vitamins. And when I say a strong regimen, I'm not overdosing, but I mean, when the FDA says, hey, you need 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C for health.
Not enough.
Dude, I'm way past 1,000 milligrams, right? And it has nothing to do with my body weight. I'm like, I pack that stuff, And when you shared that with, and it turned into something because here's a force that's coming after, and people might be going, well, this is old school. Why are you still talking about this? I'm about to tell you why we're still talking about this. I'm about to read something off the internet for you right now. Because I typed in the word, the search engine, I went, is the Pfizer vaccine? And the first thing that came up was safe, right? That's the political term. That's the political term. So Google puts that right up at top. I don't want to know if it's safe. I want to know if it's legal. I want to know if it's proved. And that's buried down in there while you're typing this in. So I have to get into the APP to find approved in there with the FDA. I said vaccine FDA approved, right? Are you guys ready for this? Because people still live going, oh, well, now it's approved. Now it's approved. I got an eye opener for everybody here, right? Because they're still tweaking the lie, and that's what kills me so much. It says this, and this is the general, probably the AI answer at this point. But this is what it says. My question is the Pfizer vaccine FDA approved? And this is important for people to understand. If you're a Christian, you better seek truth. When I say truth, you better be accountable to the Holy Spirit, and you better be serving Jesus Christ, who was off the cross, sitting at the right hand of the Father, and the Holy Spirit's dwelling in you to tell you the truth, period. And if you don't have a life of, hey, I'm accountable because the righteousness of Christ, I did not earn, as a free gift is inside of me, I feel like there's a certain obligation to embrace the truth more than in almost anything I read because of that. I can tell you that when I'm driving that motorcycle and he says, hey, call Bob, and I got more to these testimonies because lives were saved as a result of me listening to the Holy Spirit. And if this is about lives being saved, and we believe in the most important life being saved is unto eternity through Jesus Christ. But what Pfizer was demanding, the government was demanding, like, look, we're not taking them, and lives are getting saved right and left this way, and it's not the mandate. And people are glad for it. This is what it says. My question, is the Pfizer vaccine FDA approved? The answer, yes. The Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine, brand name Comirnaty, is fully FDA approved for certain age groups. I'm telling you, that ticks me off to no end right there. Because it's as misleading already. It's like, yes, it is. And people will stop at that. No, for certain age groups. With the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, having approved it for specific populations. And this is my favorite one, and this is the last one on this. While emergency use authorizations cover all the other ages, while updated formulations are available.
Yeah, and it's approved for people my age and older.
Because they don't, I don't know. I used to not be that conspiracy guy, but it's like somebody behind all this wants to make the population smaller on this planet. I mean, I used to sit there and go, that's not thinking, but I'm still looking, I look at you look at the facts of the results of this and you're going, that's not incorrect. That's somewhere, and that's the enemy, because the enemy wants to kill, right? And we're going to bring the devil into this. That's exactly what. And if you don't serve Jesus Christ, you serve the one who's like, way, in the name of saving lives, we're going to kill. And that's the same with abortion, right? So emergency use authorizations, so people don't understand there isn't one. What people don't understand is it says, well, it's an emergency use authorization. Well, there is an emergency. There's not an emergency going on. There isn't one going on at all. So everybody this is approved for, what is that doing to us right now? What does that put us in as a society for them to say this? And right now, where's our comfort level with vaccines now 4 years later?
People are not comfortable. Their eyes have been opened. When you see the people that have been impacted and the data is coming out of many people that have been injured or killed, not everybody, obviously, but everybody, we're not all the same. And so that is the issue. And going back to the vitamin C, and this, you remember I told you about my son when he was 12, had a heart condition. And we took him to the heart doctor, and they put him on all kinds of drugs. It didn't improve him at all. He couldn't even get out of bed to go to the bathroom. I'd have to carry him. And I'd carry him to the computer, and he'd sit there for a short time, and he couldn't stay. And so he was failing. He had no heart output. And so they said, well, there's nothing we can do. He's going to have to go on a heart transplant list. So
that is not a small statement.
Yeah.
When they said this to you.
Yeah. And so I started studying, what could be the possibility. And then I said, well, the possibility of a virus that was in his heart. And so I started researching, and I came across Linus Pauling, who got Nobel Peace Prize for his research in vitamin C. And so I studied him, and I bought a big bottle of the chewable that tastes like candy vitamin C. And I sat down with Matt, and I said, okay, you're home, and, I'll put you on the couch. You can watch TV, but every time there's an hour goes by, take 5 or 6 of these. There were 500 milligrams each. Now, if you take too much vitamin C, what happens is you can get gas or diarrhea because it's water soluble, and that's when okay, I've taken too much. And so for many people, sometimes 500 milligrams causes gas, very little. And for some people, you can go take 6, 7, 8, and you're still okay. So I got Matt up to 35 grams, which is 35,000 milligrams. No gas, no diarrhea. But what happened? He was able to start getting out of bed himself. And he would go get on the computer and start, playing his games or whatever. And so I kept him on it, and then we had to go see the doctor. And I said, Matt, don't tell the doctor I'm giving you vitamin C. Okay, Dad. First thing he goes in there, how you doing, Matt? I'm doing great. My dad's giving me vitamin C. So the doctor turns to me, and he says, don't you dare self-medicate him. So he's just giving me this lecture on I'm interfering with the medicine by giving him what he needs. And so I'd listen to him, and I'm nodding, and go home. Okay, Matt, there you go. So and then probably a couple of weeks later, he started getting gas. So I said, okay, let's back it down. We back it down to like about 20,000, and then we were okay there. Kept it there, and then as we proceeded, we just got less and less and less. We decided to go to Mayo Clinic and have another doctor get another opinion. So we brought him in there, and they did the heart set looked at his heart. They set it up and through the vein, and then we came for the results, and the doc said, well, there's nothing wrong with his heart. His heart is fine. He said maybe he had a virus. I said maybe. And so then Matt, who was in a hospital going to school here locally, Stoddard, I think, Children's, and he had friends that had heart conditions and other issues, cancer, and they were dying, friends that he met. So he had this psychological thing in his head that he was going to die too.
Man.
Even though the doc said, no, he's fine. Take him off the meds and send him home. But it took a long time for us to say, Matt, you're fine, you're good, you're okay. You're not gonna die. Your heart is okay. And here's the doctor we went through. But anyway, that was the biggest thing, was getting over his mental thinking about he was going to be next. So that was the problem. But the vitamin C did its job. So that's why I say, and I tell people, even my daughter got the flu recently, and she just started on vitamin C right away. And she's she can't take much of it, but she could take a lot of it. Her body was using it. to fight off, kill. Wow. It'll kill viruses and bacteria. It'll do that at the right level. So anyway, I just wanted to go back there.
Well, one of the things it's amazing to me when you testify to this, that a doctor said, we need to put your son on a heart patient list. He is going to be a recipient for a new heart transplant.
Mm-hmm.
And another doctor then says, we seem to find no problem. And I put a little more stock in Mayo than a lot of doctors. You know, I don't put all my stock in them anymore. I learned a lot. My wife was a patient at Mayo, and I learned a lot going through this. And the number one thing is I care for her more than any of them. That was the number one thing I learned. And so when you think about this in society today, how many people will be skeptics towards you still, trusting that a doctor told you should have had his heart replaced, and yet another doctor said no. And yet we have a tendency to put all of our trust apples in one basket as people, instead of even thinking there could be an option at all outside what the doctor is suggesting. And I point to this. When you came and shared this, both our congregation at White Dove and the one-man men's group, and we got guys, you know, that one-man men's group's got guys coming from all kinds of other churches. The thing that captivated me the most about what you were saying, and this is when I began doing vitamins and just a gentle nebulizer routine that worked very well, was, as you said, you know, if you want, and just like people are hearing you right now on this podcast, if you've ever yelled at anybody, I would certainly not believe it. But you know, and we played that Joe Biden clip early on in these podcasting. It actually is the thing that shut us down on all the social media platforms, and we're not welcome back onto one of them because of it. And all we did was we played Joe Biden's speech on my patience is growing thin for you people not taking the vaccine.
I remember that.
And tell me that is not Hitler. You should have seen this guy's face. He was raging mad at who? Citizens of the United States. That's the first time I've ever wanted to come out of my seat and grab a president by the neck and say, you listen to me, twerp. You don't talk to the citizens of the United States that way. I don't care who you are. And when you presented just some health options to our guys, you didn't come in and say, don't take the vaccine. You didn't come in and say, don't vote Democrat. You came in and said, look, guys, here's something that's worked pretty good. You testify about your son, and you made it simple. You just do this, and you do this. And if it's doing this, you do this, and there you go. If you like, here it is. And that sounds to me like the Spirit of God. You know, if you like, here it is. Mm-hmm. Free will is really is authored in love. And there was not a lot of love in the federal government going on at the time. Glenn, this information got to you, and do you mind talking a little bit about what impact you was? You kind of embraced this. In a state, I would add, that doesn't embrace, I mean, yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, the first conversation that I had with Bob, and the first time I actually implemented that protocol with my friend in Florida, was when it hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, not only does this work, but it works well. And the interesting thing about this too, with the COVID-19 situation, was people were, I'm sure you got both experiences as well, were kind of fed up with, hey, this isn't working. Why am I coming to the hospital and you're just sending me home and now I die? Or why do I go to the hospital and I die? And everybody knew somebody by then. And so I had this thing going. I gave it to my friend who's actually in the medical community. And I was a little surprised that he went for it, but he was feeling so bad. And he said, Glenn, I don't think I'm going to make it. I feel terrible. And my dad's already in the hospital with it, and I don't think he's going to make it either. So at this point, we've got the what do you got to lose crowd.
Right.
And that precipitated all of this kind of stuff. And so I ran into all types of those what do you got to lose crowds. I said, try anything, because this isn't working. And with him, it worked out. He actually got his dad out of the hospital with this protocol that was surely going to die. And so after that, then I worked up my own situation. I had a place where I could put this together quickly and also dispatch it to people that needed help. And about 6 nebulizers. I kept one for me and my family at home, and the rest, especially in the fall of 2021, was gone for 3 straight months.
In people's homes.
And what would happen was someone would call me and they would say, hey, Glenn, I heard you're the vaccine, you're the nebulizer guy. And it's like, who are you? And why are you calling me? And like Bob said, I'm not, but this has worked for several friends. You're welcome to call them and see how it worked. I do have one I'm willing to lend to you if you'd like to try it. And then I would put the caveat, If this worked good for you and your family and someone else needs it, keep it as long as you want. And they said, okay, great. How much do I owe you? I said, don't insult me. I am not a doctor. I don't know what I'm doing. Bob does. And so what I'm doing, I'm just giving the ability to try to solve this problem when the hospitals didn't know what to do. A lot of the good doctors didn't. And it finally got so bad in Rockford, Illinois, that we had a protocol of several doctors that stepped away from the hospitals and were issuing the kind of stuff that Bob was recommending. And they were on the clock 24/7 in the fall of 21. They were around the clock helping people. So then I knew, oh my goodness gracious, something's up. Something's up. And people were using it. They were giving it to their friends. What do I do? And that situation with our family member and her husband in Wisconsin.
Extended family.
I spent a lot of time on the phone with Bob on that one, and I just couldn't believe what was happening. And people are coming to me for advice. Guys, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is a way to go and a treatment you can apply. And then that just, at this time, I'm also full-fledged with, against mandates with the U.S. Freedom Flyers.
Yeah.
And so this was all coalescing into one thing. And then I just knew this isn't something that I can be quiet about anymore. This isn't something I can sit and say, this isn't happening, because it is. And I saw the results, and I saw the positive from alternative protocols, and I saw the negative coming from the government and other institutions that were forcing something that wasn't healthy.
Right. Mm-hmm. It was weird to me because people were like saying, you can't tell the government that what they're asking is bad, no matter what the results. And fear is we teach this at the church quite a bit. There's two things I tell people at the church. I said, fear is a horrible leader. And I said, so is guilt. Both of them are horrible leaders. And both of those factors were put in place during the COVID mandates. Mm-hmm. One, to make everybody afraid of dying, which no Christian should be. Mm-hmm. No Christian fundamentally should fear death. I mean, you can be afraid or be sorrowful that you're going to be gone. I understand you have to kind of work for those things. But the kind of abject panic of that, what happened to the surety of salvation? And that's not against people. That's just like, wait a minute, I'm not, the Bible states, oh, death, where is thy sting? It's almost like slapping it back in the face. Kind of like your come and make me shirt. come and make me vaccinate. Go ahead, let's do this thing. Literally in the word, it says fear or death. Where's your sting? Mm-hmm. Bring it. There's no power over my life. There's eternity. And so the church really got split and challenged over this. And I might add, too, when people would say, how much can I give for you this? You should have said, well, if you put it through your insurance, I'll get a ton of money. And I used to think lightly of that, too. But we can't walk away from this, because when it comes down to it, the financial provision that was allowed for in this, the taxpayers paid out of it. It's in addition to our debt now, to pay all these companies to come up with this so that we could trust in science and nothing else. And then in trusting in that science, these people have made billions and billions and trillions of dollars. And then they have the moral, they also have the moral high ground. Like everybody's like, oh my gosh, we're starting to call them essential. We have no idea in a country like this, and you gotta understand something. This isn't going away anytime soon, I don't believe, and that's why we got to talk about it today. Because I continue to talk about this today because the vaccine. We still know people who continue to take the COVID vaccine, but still have questions about their health, but nobody wants to answer them. Mm-hmm. We know people like this. That, well, I'm still taking it, but they don't know exactly what's wrong here because everything else is good, but they don't know what else is actually going on wrong here. Mm-hmm. And in my years of the COVID, by 2023. And people say, look, it's important that not even one die. Well, now there's tens and hundreds of thousands of people linked to the vaccine directly with death. And people say, well, that's not even, no, it's journaled now. Mm-hmm. It's medical journaled now. It is, you go read it because the doctors have written it, and it's now in the libraries of the medical community. And what I couldn't stop was I knew one person in that time period. Because most of the people you talk to, they go, oh my gosh, if you don't do it, COVID's killing people. My number one question of the people that would say that is do you know one? Now, of the people, I'm not a statistician, but of the people I talked to, not one person said, I know somebody who died from COVID. So it's all induced by the media, right? People are dying. Oh, do you know somebody? Now, when I was a kid, we went to school, and somebody said, hey, people are getting the flu, and everybody go, I know, it's going around, because you knew somebody. So in the course of the COVID vaccine, what was interesting to me is I learned to trust just what I saw. Mm-hmm. And I knew one guy who got who got COVID, but then also got intestinal. He got the double whammy because they stopped talking about the flu altogether.
They did.
They quit saying the flu. But what happened with him was he got COVID, and then he got the flu because COVID never induced the inability to maintain nutrients. That was the other flu. So we had both. And it wasn't until 2 years after his death that they started admitting, well, there's a thing called dual. Well, welcome to that. So he had COVID, he had that, and then when he was in the hospital, they gave him, I believe, I would have to double check this, remdesivir.
Yes.
And he passed.
Yeah.
So when people say, well, people were dying of COVID, I can say, all right, one person I knew had it along with other issues. But I tell people, however, I know 5 people personally under the age of 50, 2 under the age of 30 that died suddenly after the vaccine. So I'm just an idiot. I just do a job. But in my life circle, somebody gets the shot and they're found dead 30 days later and their blood vessels blew on up in their lungs and they have no prior. They have no medical. They're not taking one pill. There's not one thing wrong with them. They're dead. Absolute musical genius found dead. One of the most tragic stories I've ever heard of in my life. All of a sudden I start seeing people on Facebook, oh, my big brother, he's 30 years old and they don't know what the complications are, but he died unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. And he had the shot, yeah. I'm going, look, I'm just an idiot, but I know 5 people that died that got the shot that nobody will give answers for. And I only know one who had 2 other conditions along with it that did die. So can we take a look at this, right? And is that going to come back around? I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, they have a lot more data now that they have been interpreting. Myocarditis, heart condition that's fatal. That's just skyrocket. Turbo cancers, that's a new term they came up with turbo cancers. If you remember early on when the president evidently got sick, Trump.
Yep.
Remember he mentioned hydroxychloroquine.
Yep.
And they just trashed him. That's for parasites, And then they said he told us to drink bleach. The president was saying that, what it was chlorine dioxide, which is something that you use to purify water, and you can buy it anywhere. And so it's, sodium chloride and hydrochloric acid. Well, the studies now are also saying you can cure cancer with that. Wow. And so it's all of these things that have been hidden and buried are coming to light. Just like ivermectin, Dr. Zelensky, who passed away from cancer, but he had the ivermectin, and now they're dealing with ivermectin and fenbendazole, which ivermectin is, they say it's for horses. Well, they do give them to horses. Fenbendazole they give to dogs. Well, guess what? Many people are taking it that have cancer, and they're getting cured.
Yeah.
So there are many off-label drugs that have been researched over the years and years ago. There's studies out there, but they're not being used, or they're just suppressed. Yeah. So a lot of suppression is going. Why? Because the multi-trillion-dollar industry doesn't want simple fixes.
Right. And you can tell they're pushing the agenda because when they write things like this, FDA approval of Comirnaty, the vaccine has full FDA approval for various age groups, building its initial emergency authorizations. The motive behind that isn't the same as saying, you know what, it has approval, but only for certain groups. That doesn't sound as positive, mm-hmm. But that's the truth. Mm-hmm. So what it actually is it has approval, but you need to be careful. Mm-hmm. It could be reported that way.
Yeah.
But it's not.
No.
It's still reported as the savior.
Right. And if you remember when it first came out, they always have a insert into the vaccine box that tells you everything that's in it.
Yep.
Blank. They were showing that it's just blank.
Yep.
Because they don't want you to know what's in it.
I don't know why, but I need to give a kudos. My wife and I left our prescription medication providers. We left Sam's Club. Good people. And the thing of it was over there were some people we'd worked for a long time, really, really, really nice people. But I left Sam's Club, and I quit going to Walgreens. And the reason is when the vaccines were being promoted, those were the people that seemed to know the least. And you would go in there and they say, oh, I don't know, man, you just need to get your shot, get your shot, get your shot, get your shot, get your shot. That would be like me on the sales floor when I used to sell pianos. Buy a piano, buy a piano, buy a piano, buy a piano. Why is that? Well, because you make money. And that's all they could say. And so I remember, Glenn, it was 3 years after you had the printout done for the Pfizer one. I went in then, I said, well, 3 years later, they're going to give it to me. Nope. And it's a law mandate. Like, they have to hand it to you physically. They have to hand it to you. And they're like, well, you're going to need to find that online. I went, yeah, so you're trying to kill my family. I'm not doing my scripts here anymore. So I go to a Medicap, and I don't know much about them, and I'm not trying to promote them. So we go to a Medicap place now. Last time I went in to get a script, they have 4 big postings on there on clipboards, every vaccine that you need. And I went over that you can get. That's it. That is possible, and it has it at the pickup. So I went to the manager and I said, hey. I said, what are these here? And he goes, those are the vaccines that are offered. And he said, and if you want a copy of any one of those or all of those for your reading, I'll print them off for you right now, to quote him. And I went, good. I found my people.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good.
And he didn't say, oh, we don't believe in it. He just said he was more concerned about my understanding than he was than pumping me full of crap. And that meant the world to me, totally.
Well, I just, from my own experience, I did a straw poll. How many people that, if I have a colleague or something like said, okay, you don't need to tell me, this is your own personal business, but did you happen to get a COVID vaccine? And don't tell me if you don't want to. I don't care. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I don't care. And the people are cool about it. Yeah, no, I did, and what do I say? Well, A, did your own personal doctor recommend it? Well, I never visited it. And 2, did the pharmacy or wherever, right? Because you could go out to a minivan out in the parking lot and they'd give you a COVID vaccine, right? Like Tommy Boy or something. Yeah. And we've got a van down by the river. Come get your vaccine. And so, and I said,
we got moonshine in the bottle back here. Who get you some of this?
That would at least work. Probably.
I know, right?
And so I said, well, did you happen to get, the fact sheet from the vaccine? No. You know how many people that I've talked to over 3 years that did? 0. Big goose egg. Nobody, and I mean nobody, got the fact sheets. And guess what? That's required by law for an emergency use drug of any kind, including the vaccine. And I mean nobody. Not doctors' offices, not pharmacies, nobody of nobody. And for me, that's the issue. Okay, I can even forgive some of the other things. But when you're willfully violating federal law to make somebody sick or dead, that's a problem for me. That's a big problem. And so why wouldn't they? I don't know.
That was the other paperwork you found at the same time that you handed out. You said, John, take a look at this. He goes, it's illegal for them not. As a matter of fact, it's not only illegal for them to not give you the paperwork, it's illegal for them to not give it to you and have you sign it before they jab it into your arm. And that's federal law.
It's got to be in full recognition.
Full recognition has to be in full recognition. Yep. They have to hand you the paperwork, and you have to say, okay, I'm good with it. And again, everybody's like, yeah, but it saves lives. And I'm like, all right, if you're okay with me breaking the law in the name of what I call saving lives. And that's such a scary road to go down. And nobody's going to jail for it.
Yet.
Yeah, I keep hearing, yeah, we'll see, right? We'll see.
Well, he was in law enforcement, and he should have some explanation for that.
Yeah, but if I can get 20 or 30 cents off for gas, then it's probably worth getting the
Oh, man. How's it that the helpful smile in every aisle is trying to kill everybody in Des Moines? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about that, Hy-Vee, I'm going to say the name. Hy-Vee keeps promoting this.
Yeah. Yep.
And you folks need to stop. Because it's what you're doing is against the law if you're not doing all this in line with the law. And that just needs to stop. Walgreens, everybody has their shirt on. You go in there, and I go in there and get a gallon of milk or something or a loaf of bread or whatever and get everybody vaccine. I just want to stand in the middle there and say, you murderous and adulterous people, you murderous and adulterous nation, repent and turn to the Lord thy God, because there's ignorant people walking around there, and Walgreens is going, man, we got to get money somehow. Yeah. Every shirt on it's vaccines, get your vaccine. I'm going, has nobody even read what's going on? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I just, it's one of those things that it still comes back to, and I'm sure you think when you know of somebody young dies of a heart attack or or gets a cancer, don't you always wonder and think, did they?
Yeah.
I always do. Did they?
I know. Yep.
But the thing is, even if you do, you can fight back by changing your life and doing the right things for your immune system to kick in. Because, the only thing that's going to cure cancer is your immune system. It's not going to be any chemo. It's not going to be radiation. It's going to be your own immune system. So that's what you've got to build up. And that's what you've got to, so you have to avoid every kind of toxin that you can. But it's not a one-time thing, meaning that, okay, I'm going to clean my house and throw out all of this cleaning stuff because that's all poison. I wear latex gloves. If I'm going to clean, if I'm going to use bleach or whatever, I don't want it touching my skin. Whatever touches your skin is in your body. It's sucked in. And so you've got to be careful what you're touching. Any house spray, like, I can make my car smell good by putting this chemical into, you're breathing poison. Every time you spray, I'm not going to name any, you're breathing poison. I make my own air cleaner with essential oils. If you ever follow me to the store, you're going to see me buying a bottle of Everclear. Okay. You can only
that helps for a lot of things.
You can only buy 151 proof because they said that they say the 200 proof is killing too many people. That's kind of ridiculous. 151 will do it too.
All day.
But ethyl alcohol is a solvent. Okay, and so I dissolve my essential oils with the alcohol into a spray container. And you can use it as an air freshener. And it won't hurt you because it's real stuff. It's real plants.
Bob gets pulled over for speeding. He rolls down his window and the officer says, "Have you been air freshening, Bob?"
Is that an open bottle?
I'm going to need your car to blow into this device.
I know all about those devices. I used to work with those.
Right.
But anyway. So what I'm saying is there are things you can do to protect yourself. Keep the poison out.
This begs a question. I have heard this question asked several times, and it was brought forth even today before the program, and I appreciate that. I have bumped into people who said, "You know what? I got a shot." I've known a couple different categories of people. I got a shot, then I got a second shot, and then I found out BS, and they stopped. They just didn't continue in the lie story. I knew one individual that got one shot, and they were pretty adamant. They're just like, you know what? The government kind of knows what they're doing. This they're doing. And within 6 months, they saw what was happening in Israel because they like information and they like reading about true stories that's going on their own with no pressure. They said, I'm not doing another one. Because Israel was showing that wasn't stopping a thing. Mm-hmm. And in that person's age category, then the shot didn't mean anything. They were at the zero risk level. And they just went, okay. No, they didn't go, people lied to me, but they said, I'm looking at the facts here. I'm not taking this again. Mm-hmm. But some people have taken 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. Maybe some people are still taking and they're hearing this and they're going, wait a minute. If I choose to stop this, though, I got this stuff floating around in me now. 1, is stuff potentially still floating around in somebody that's got one of these? And then number 2, is there something they can do to be aggressive about trying to counter that now? Even extract it for that matter.
Yeah, there are things that some of the scientists are working on finding out by taking a person's blood and looking at all of the self-assembling nanoprobes that they're seeing.
I don't even want to.
There's so much. I'm just saying that I've been reading of what's happening, within the body, and but they're trying to find ways to deactivate it.
Okay.
You see, and
200 proof Everclear would probably do it.
Deactivate something.
Deactivate something.
But there are substances you can take. Well, for instance, like chlorella, spirulina. They will, they can detox you of heavy metals.
Chlorella and what?
Spirulina.
Spirulina?
Yeah,
they work as detoxifiers
they
metals.
Detox, metals.
Okay.
You can take activated charcoal, which the hospitals use if you overdose on some poison or whatever.
Yep.
They'll put...
Vets use it too.
Yeah.
Dogs get into something, and they put activated charcoal.
The charcoal
stick it in their skin.
Absorb, and then you poop it out. And so, but the thing is, you don't want to take that once you have vitamins in your stomach because it'll absorb that too.
Yeah.
So, you do it like if you don't eat in the evening, you can do it like overnight, so it starts to clean whatever's there. There's another one, bentonite clay. I haven't used it. I have it, but I haven't used it because there's so many other ways to detox. But that's the thing. And so another one is EDTA. Now, I know that people don't know quite what that is, but I worked with it forever at the lab. But I just didn't know that you can take it and consume it. But that also will eliminate heavy metals. And, vitamin C also helps with that. Vitamin C, EDTA. There's also methylene blue that you've probably heard of.
Yeah,
that people take. The only thing is, you'll urinate blue.
That'd be cool to watch.
But there are things, and it takes a lot of research, to do it. But the thing is, they have taken these scientists have taken non-vaxxed blood, and they're still seeing graphene oxide and nanoprobes in non-vaxxed.
Why? Why is that in there?
Well,
what is the thought behind that? I've had some conversations with people why that'd be. What do you think?
Shedding.
Explain shedding.
It's it gets into your blood, gets into your lungs, and you can actually breathe or cough or sneeze it out. And people that have had no vax, when they hang around people that have been, usually initially right after you've taken the vax,
where it's stronger in your system.
Yeah, they start getting symptoms that are consistent with getting it.
Wow.
And
like secondhand smoke, almost.
Very much.
Right. So that's another thing that people are going to say, oh, that's a bunch of baloney. But I'm just saying, these are legitimate scientific researchers, and they're publishing their results.
Sure.
And so, but the thing is, there are a lot of other things that you're taking into your body. If you have fillings, mercury fillings, you got mercury constantly, and that's the most toxic substance. And I've had like 7 or 8 removed from my mouth because I've had them like most of my life.
I've heard a lot of cases of that, amalgam, and metals and stuff like that in your mouth, and people are going, oh, suddenly I have those nerve pain and all this stuff going on in here, and they're like, get those out of your mouth.
Right, and it's right close to your brain.
Yeah.
And it off gases. You drink hot liquid, and you can. They showed that. In my research, you can just see the like a smoke cloud coming up from a tooth. They'll extract a tooth that has a filling, and then they heat it, and then you just see the mercury. 50% of it's mercury. So what I'm saying is that we are so toxic, even when you're not even talking about the COVID vaccine or other vaccines. Even, I read an article that they're even putting in the dental anesthetics mRNA. And so it's very hard to avoid all of it. So you've got to be considering living clean, eating clean, breathing clean. Now the other big thing is nanoplastics that you get from drinking, from water bottles. And people say that every week you get about a credit card of nanoplastics in your body. So we live in a really toxic world, and it's all our fault. Not me, not you, but industry.
Yeah. So
there's so many things. That's why I say the best thing you can do is be detoxing. Yeah, I do take the vitamins, the minerals, and all of that. That's critical too. But you got to stop it from coming in as much as you can.
Yeah.
If you use antiperspirant, you have aluminum.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, high aluminum levels in the brain. If you eat off aluminum containers, pots, pans, you're getting that aluminum in your body.
Is that why I've been starting to be told? I use a lot of aluminum foil when I'm smoking stuff, and then I wrap it up in aluminum foil, and I just got word, stop using that aluminum foil, start using butcher paper. Would that be maybe why?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, and how you wash your clothes with all the different dyes and all the chemicals that get into your clothes, and you wear them, and their body absorbs them. I mean, when you really study this, you can be fanatical about it. I'm just saying that your liver needs to be detoxing.
Right.
And that's the biggest one, that everything you take in that's a chemical, it has to clear it and purify your body. And so how many people have fatty liver and fatty liver disease?
Yeah.
And they're only working off the maybe 15% of their body, of their liver is what's left. But it is reversible, and there are things you can take for your liver, milk thistle and dandelion root. All those dandelions that you spray you don't want in your yard? It's good to cleanse your liver. Oh. Not after you spray it. It's before.
Right.
So I'm just saying that there are things you can do, but it takes time to study it, research it, look to see what you can do. There's a lot of information out there.
Right. Mm-hmm. Glenn, when you were in Illinois and this was going on and you were talking about having those nebulizers out, one notion, and I know this comes up, it's just like if the government wants me to do it, then to counter that, I'm not gonna. Yeah. But from the stance of faith, and I mean this in a more specific term, I never want to generalize the statement faith. You're a believer in Christ Jesus and the saving work. Is there a role of that at all, or is just this being a good person when you take a stance like this? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. It was one of the most interesting times of my life because Illinois was locked down, for a long, long time. And the only people that were helping the community were like-minded people like me. Hey, we're obligated to help the community here. That's what God demands. Mm-hmm. We're obligated to make sure that people are cared for. We're obligated to do this, to do that. And so the fascinating thing was I actually saw that in action under a very oppressive regime. And I don't use those words lightly. That's what was going on in Illinois. Yeah. And so that was a conviction for me and for other guys. And we're old timers. I really didn't care what happened to me. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. And I'll put myself out. I don't care what COVID is. I don't care if I get it. If somebody needs help, I'm going to go to their house and help them.
Right.
And the government said, no, stay home.
Right.
Avoid it. So it was completely contradictory to what God would have his people do in this time. And so it was a challenge to the Christian community. What are you going to do? Are you going to stay locked up and watch those old people die in their homes? Or are you going to go visit? You're going to bring them food. You're going to bring them water, maybe a nebulizer treatment if they require it or whatever. And so I was very pleased to see a lot of guys in my area that just said, hey, listen, what are we supposed to do? What would God have us do? And how do we do that? Let's just do it. Yeah. And so it was just incredible to see all these guys stepping up to the plate, interconnecting one to another, face to face, also, with electronic devices, and just let's pick up the ball and run. Yeah. And so when the other state stuff comes, you just already know what the motive is.
Right.
It's the opposite of helping those people get better and do all these things. So, it was hugely beneficial and a lot of growing for a lot of people.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's not. People say, well, not just Christians can do good things, and sometimes that's a difficult discussion because humanity can do a lot of good things, but they might not be God's things, and we can rank them as that. And one of the things that I see, you had that sensation, it's like, look, these people need help. If I get COVID, then I get COVID, but I got to get in there. And I had that sensation hit me when we had COVID really hit our congregation. Not a big congregation, but when that many people get hit by it, all of a sudden it's a deal, right? And what I found myself going is like, live or die, here's the deal. This is what you're designed to do by God at this point. If they have it, you show up, you walk in. Mm-hmm. Well, you need to protect yourself. I'm sorry, that's not a part of this, actually. I'll do the best I can that way, but somebody else actually has this going on. I'm walking through that door. Oh, don't walk through the door. Oh, no, I'm coming in. And I was delivering orange juice to people. I was buying up orange juice and delivering it to people who had a hard time getting vitamin C in them. So that was like a gift of mine. And people kept saying, Christian community kept saying, oh, be careful, be careful. I'm like, what happened to the idea of sacrifice of your own life for anything? And there has to be something inside of you just go, look, I really don't care. There was a decision to me and said, if I get COVID and die, how would God look at me because I didn't walk through the door because I followed the government and said, everybody stay away from one another, which is nowhere found in the scriptures except for legitimate illness. And when they started talking about, well, you need to stay away for, I can't remember what the numeric was, they'd say 7 days or 11 days or 14 days. And they said it like it was some big miracle. Like, hey, you need to listen to us because you need to be. And I went, oh, flip over to Deuteronomy. Guess what, bozo? God said if somebody has an infection, you stay away for 14 days and then you're fine. And they were talking about like the science community owned that wisdom. It's just like you can go to the Old Testament and find out that God told everybody what to do in the first place, even if there was something, so that it wouldn't be transmitted. But it didn't say don't not try to help somebody, right? And so this whole notion of this going on, that frustrated me to no end when Christian communities kept saying, we need to separate. We need to separate and separate. I'm going, where is that ideal in the Holy Spirit at all? Where's the ideals? We need to get away from each other. And we did it for the shortest time. Do you remember 2 months, 3 months, maybe 3 months, I think we did. Yep, and we went to Facebook and we started broadcasting from my shop, my piano shop, for 3 months. And then I went, what in the heck are we doing? And we opened the church back up, and I thought, you know what, maybe 3 or 4 trickles through the door. Boom. Pretty much everybody showed up. And if it wasn't that Sunday, by the next. And we were all together. And, man, I'll never forget the sensation when we came together, man. And the moment of being together like that, and I realized something. I'm not trying to blame humans or humanity for this, but there is one named the devil, and he's got a plan. And people don't know it. Unbelievers and believers alike don't understand that when they start walking in his leading, that's what it is. It separates people, puts fear in people, tries to steal from people, tries to destroy people. Shoot, that family member up in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. If I'm remembering correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. Why is it you had to go up? Because didn't he try to go to the doctors? Wasn't he turned away?
Yeah, he was, and
because he didn't have the shot.
The specific reason was,
okay.
He didn't, he was in big trouble. It could have been that. It could have been that very thing. But we actually had gone home early from Des Moines. Well, wasn't he supposed to be home? We were a day early. He leaves me a message. Make a short story long. I don't understand him. He's coughing, terrible. So I said, I don't know who this is, but text me. He did. Now I know who it is. And so we loaded up a nebulizer and blasted up to Wisconsin to help out with that. It was like a no-brainer. It's like God brought us home. We're here early. There's a nebulizer packed, ready to go. It's going to be an hour drive up there. I said, babe, I'll see you in a couple hours. And I had that reaction from their house as well when I walked up to the door. Glenn, just leave it out there. I'll come and get it later. I said, get out of my way. I'm going to the house. I went right up to him, gave him a big hug, said, you're going to be fine. I know this guy, Bob. Bob's a good man. He hasn't lied to me yet, and I doubt he will now. So, and all the things we're talking about. So, yeah, it was just a matter of I was so fed up with what our government was doing to people that I didn't care if I died walking out of that door. It's like, we're going to take care of this guy. And so God's mercy, and Bob's advice, and all the people that worked in there, he's good to go yet today and talks about it still.
Are we still at risk? Kennedy is now in there trying to do what he can, I think. I don't follow him closely, but they're trying to do things. And, one of them is they're having to bow a little bit and go, okay, it's only, we won't recommend it for people who don't have to have it. And they've taken it off the table for, I think, 4 months or 6 months, And nobody's looking back and going, guess what? They said all these little children should be having it. Now they're saying, you know what? It's dangerous. And nobody's backtracking that story. You know what I'm saying? But are we still at risk? Because he might be going in there going, hey, no mandates on certain of these things, but there's still plenty of vaccines out there available, especially for infants. And how many are they getting now by the time they're a year old?
Well, it actually changed like yesterday. The news came out.
Oh.
They were requiring between the ages of 0 and 8 or 17, 18, 72 vaccinations. And now they've reduced it to 11.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. 11. And you have a choice.
Serious?
Yeah.
Like the parent can actually say.
And it just came out yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Do we think there'll be pushback from the medical community on this?
Oh, yeah.
Well, sure, that will, because it's money. Money.
Well, people that are watching the podcast need to put it in their mind that they do have this option now.
Right.
To say no. So before you go to college, before you go to high school, before you go to who cares where, and they're threatening you, remind them of this new law. So definitely put it in your back pocket.
Is that a federal thing?
Yeah.
Do states get to change that in any way, or is it because medicine is federally regulated, not state regulated?
They're supposed to follow CDC guidelines.
All right.
So we'll have to see when it breaks down. I mean, we just have some. They just came out, so you don't know all the details.
Sure.
But that's what the abstract basically said. Yeah. So that's good news. So it's low. Dr. Oz is also part of the group of, expert doctors that are with the CDC. And he's always And he's a legitimate doctor. Of course, RFK Jr. is not a doctor. He's a lawyer, but he knows a lot.
Right. Mm-hmm. I don't know much about Dr. Oz. Is he somebody to listen to? Does he have some good recommendations around a lot of this stuff?
You see him on the internet a lot with natural healing ways.
Yep.
Right.
So he's been around a long time. He used to have a show and all. Mm-hmm.
Do we believe that if somebody has, we talked about what people can do if they've had the shot, and now they're concerned about it. Now, if they're not concerned about it, there's an element of faith, I think, that people have to live at within themselves. Where they're, and I don't want to say where they're comfortable, but kind of where they're at, you know. And I never want to push somebody outside of that, but I want to encourage people to be at a place to say, hey, where you're comfortable with this, I'll stand with you in it too. And I think that's important for the believing body, is that you come upon somebody, whatever the decision is they made whatsoever, you say, I'm with you right here where you're at. And because I've also seen it happen where the anti-vax group can also have a tendency to panic, right, in the conversation, instead of meet somebody right there at. And then what I would call is a equal and uncomfortable reaction. So when they said, hey, we're mandating these are vaccines, and then the death toll started to rise, and then turbo cancer started to turn on, then there's also a temptation for the anti-vaxxers to go see and start to counter in such a way. Do we have to be careful about this as believers, our approach and where people at? Because, what if somebody says, I've had 16 shots on this? Is it a possibility to say, you know what, I'll just pray with you right now. Let's see what the Lord's got to you. I believe in a lot of stuff. Our God's powerful. He's bigger than any scientist and any nano things.
Yeah.
And, what should be our best approach to people? How do we approach people in this age now? As believers, when you bump into somebody and say, and I've seen it now. I've seen the stories about it. I've seen a couple documentaries on it where people have taken them, and it's hard for the blood not to boil and become a part of a movement that's an outright revolt, because you see these people sick, dying, suffering through it in the end. They got a shot, and then, they die in 6 months through a long, severe thing. But if you bump into something like that as a believer, what's our next step?
Well,
to help as a believer?
Well, obviously to pray for the person. I mean, I always, if I'm trying to help somebody, I usually talk about the fact that, first of all, I say, no doctor is going to tell you when your death date. Only the Lord knows your death date.
Amen.
I said,
Amen.
So don't let them curse you. I call it a curse, by saying you're going to die in 6 months or 3 months or whatever the case is, or you only have a year. I said, they don't know that. And don't believe it. If you believe it, it's going to happen, because your brain, you're doing a countdown. He told me, okay, it's been 1, 2, 3. Well, I'm getting close. People do that. I see that all the time. And I say, cancer or, cardiac problems are just a word, okay? It means something has to change in your life. It may require surgery, but you have to have a life change. And I said, you have to have a positive attitude that you're going to beat this, but you have to be thinking in that way. And even as a believer, you can say, he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes you are healed. Yeah. I said, I'm healed by your stripes. I've told that to different people, in this. And I said, and then there are things you can do, to help yourself. You got to change the way you live, because that's only adding to the problem.
Yeah.
It's only, suppressing your immune system. And some people take it and some people reject it. I'm so used to being rejected, which is fine. You guys didn't reject me, but others have. And I say, okay, it's your choice. I'm not mandating that they do what I say.
Right.
They still have a choice. And so, and that's how I go with it. But I also talk, spiritually, you don't have to fight this alone. These are, and the things that you do are what the way the Lord has intended us to live, but we've strayed from it because of money. and so that's going to corrupt people. People are corrupt, and we know that. Everybody, I'm just saying not everybody, but many people are, and that's what we're dealing with now.
Yeah.
And so, and that's, I could say politics. We all know that politics is corrupt. I gave you my interpretation of what the word politic means, right? Many bloodsuckers. Politics.
Oh my gosh.
That's not wrong.
Right.
Well, one of the things, too, that I think about is I know that you guys here are with me on this. It's like, this isn't a, see, I told you so.
Right.
When you talk about, a mother, and I've seen this, dealing with the fact that their teenage child has cancer, and it's probably going to escalate and go badly. I don't think that's funny at all. I don't. There is no situation where I would come to her and say, I told you so.
Right.
No situation whatsoever.
No.
It's my words are, what can I do to help? And do you need prayer? And I'm not going to say another word about any of their bad choices, any of their good choices. Even if the people that I really don't like have made that choice and now they're in trouble, I really have a hard time not gloating. That's not Christ-like at all. But still, I won't approach them and say, hey, listen, did you take the vax?
Yeah.
Because now you're dying and so is your whole family. I take no pleasure in that whatsoever. It's what can I do? How can I help?
Right.
What, my friend Bob, those kinds of things, because what a terrible thing. And like Bob said, this might be a chance to introduce them to God. Mm-hmm. Because there are some situations where just God is going to do the healing.
Right.
And so he uses all things for his glory. That might be an opportunity, but definitely. It's a good point to take.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many things as a believer, and they, we have this to point at, and it's become a risk in society, and people, some people might say, hey, it saved my life. Okay. Mm-hmm. You can think that. I'm okay with that, as long as you weren't mandated. But anyway, because I'm trying to protect a constitutional idea of a biblically based and sound country that is getting farther and farther away from biblically based all the time. But it's no different in many ways. I think that how many times have you bumped into somebody and their life is down and they've made some poor choices? And I just say, man, you're with your people. You're with me, you're with your people. You're with somebody who understands not only poor choices, but succumbing to sin and then many times just obeying it with a cheesy grin on my smile. On my face. So you're with the right guy. And these people, and it's no less life-threatening, some of the things they've done in their lives to themselves. And so you look at the shot, and that's not the only thing, because many things in our lives bring about regret, and then the fruit of that is pretty horrible to bear. And people, that's why gloating is not a valuable thing, when you're talking to somebody. And when you're talking about the possibility of winning somebody to Christ, it's not the debate about the vaccine. The debate is where are you at with the Lord? Because people's own guilt or feeling or even desperation, say something's happening health-wise, what do I do? And you come along and say, look, it doesn't matter what's happened. Right at the moment, what happens is I'm here and you're here and the Lord's here. And we're going to get down together right now there. So we're going to find out what the Lord has for you now, because there's no God's just going to keep punishing you because. There's no God's just going, well, man, I used to, I slept with 38 women and now I have 562 kids and none of them will talk to me. One of them tried to kill me and I have 3 variations of AIDS. And that's not a thing, but AIDS. And you meet them there where they're at. It's a similar thing. They find themselves in a predicament where there they are. They have some sickness or illness or infection or something like that because their lives went a different way. And well, you shouldn't have done that. Well, good grief, right? That's not going to play. There's no benefit in that. No. And that's where I think the idea of, well, God meets you where you're at. No, God's always there. And you can meet him where he's at, And I think it's a valuable opportunity for believers to go, hey, I got it. I understand that. I'm not going to argue vaccines for a political notion because I've seen it just implode and destroy relationships. There's people that won't talk with me, or I'm not Facebooking you anymore because you voted conservative, you voted Trump, and I'm just like, gosh, I thought we were just having a conversation. It was that simple, like there was nothing else. And as soon as that was known or understood, it's just like you were hell to them, and then it was all over right there. And the temptation in our flesh in the Christian community is to respond with, well, I'm going to win over you, or I'm going to beat you back. And go, no, it's all right. That's fine if that's the way it is. But when somebody comes and something's happened or bad health is coming and they knew it or they didn't know it, it was a mistake or whatever, then we can meet them right there and begin to pray. And I think this is a pretty serious thing, because people think Jesus is for naught. People think that Christianity is just a thought-based religion. It's just a belief thing for weak people. But when you say, Bob, you pray for them, I personally, in my own body, have at least 3 supernatural testimonies where God did exactly the opposite of what the doctor said. Mm-hmm. And the doctor had to acknowledge it. Had to.
Yeah.
Had to acknowledge it. And this wasn't my testimony, but we were a part of a Wednesday night inner city Bible study, which was fantastic. People getting saved and delivered, people were getting saved and delivered, and people were packing this house. And, it's what we might call crazy otherwise, but it was pretty cool what was going on, right? And one guy had lived a lifestyle that he had the HIV. And we know that if that runs right, then you'll get a cold and then it'll kill you. The cold just destroys your immunity.
No immune system.
But no immune system whatsoever. And of course, when you are under conviction of the Holy Spirit and you're coming to Christ and you're carrying something like that, the guilt of your life is also weighing on you. You're like, oh, here I am. This is me, man. I did this, and now it's in me. And that's a scary place to be in for a believer. In that Bible study group, I'll never forget that pastor. They said they just got around, they laid hands on him. They kind of took off, started praying in the Holy Ghost, and started declaring things and come against the devil and all this kind of stuff. And again, the world and even the conservative church will sit back and go, oh, careful, 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 except in his next blood work tests, there was no HIV to be found. Mm-hmm. So I don't care, especially when the church community needs to get a hold of this too. Believers, listen to this podcast. I'm not going to condemn your church if they go, we don't believe in tongues. Oh, do you believe that HIV can be taken out of blood? Right? And we're Christians. So do you believe in believing in God's ability to also heal? And I think we have to carry that right out in front. I think that's the same faith that brings a nebulizer to somebody who says, no, I'm giving them a hug and say, you're going to make it. That's the same healing faith, because you're not afraid of your own self. You're going in there going, no, this is going to happen. And faith starts to get to be applied. But it can happen supernaturally. It can happen through a nebulizer or through 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day. But what I'm saying is when your faith is toward that, then you're tracking towards something. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important for us to understand. What are your thoughts on that? And when you wake up in the morning and we think of this stuff, we talk government, we talk politics, and we talk religion. But when it really comes down to it, what's the thing we wake up with on the inside of us that says, this is why we go do what we do, believe what we believe, defend what we defend?
Well, I'd say simply it's just that we realize that it's a very real thing and it'll not stop. We'll be challenged more and more as time goes on. What do we believe? What are we going to do? And so this might have been a test run. Yeah. And if we don't think we did well, practice up for the next one.
Yeah.
If we think we did well, practice up for the next one and get as close to God as you can and seek his direction from the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and it's also part of who do you truly trust?
Yes.
Do you put your trust in man, or do you put your trust in God? That's where you find truth, because he is truth. He is love. You just name it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Our faith has to be placed there. Ultimately, as all these things happen, our faith goes, there's one man. His name is Jesus Christ. And he is the one that I am putting my faith in. Mm-hmm. And he is the one that we are following. And I think that's the thing that we have to wrap our minds around too, that as we continue to walk our lives, and we saw what happened with COVID, if anything, I told people, I said, I learned something. I wasn't as good a man as I thought I was. And that it ended up being a good thing, because of what it told me is my faith was not where I was thinking. I thought my faith was here, and I realized it was somewhere swimming around in a swamp when that occurred. And so I think as we kind of finish, I appreciate you guys coming. This is good conversation. Still a lot of conversations I think can always be around this, and we will always talk about this here because it's never going away. And who Christ is in us always has to point to that. We're not trying to win a battle here, but here's an article that says this is what the FDA actually says. Here's what the Pfizer paperwork actually says. And we should always steer people towards, well, go towards the truth. Go find out for yourself so that your faith can be applied to something that you can see and be tangible and walk with that. But run to the Lord and move from there. I mean, I had Christians online. I said, you know what, are these vaccines really working? Something's not good about this. I don't think this is good. I remember making a generalized statement about our need for the Lord and that I wasn't sure this was a good idea. I had somebody who doesn't comment ever on my Facebook absolutely lashed out on me. And I'm like, where did that come from? And they were saying, well, you need to grow up and understand that, God has given us scientists to help us, and this is the blessing of God. And that was the weirdest thing to me, to hear that stated in such a defensive mode, right? So I think that's something that it shocked me, but it showed me, too, that the church was equally impaled by such a thing. I don't think we are as strong as we were. And so, if anything, we can encourage people to draw into the Lord, come to Christ, push hard towards Him. Don't presume that your faith is doing good until you get into the exercise, and then start to see where that is, and start to see where that challenge is. Any last words here before we wrap it up, brothers?
I think we covered quite a bit.
We did cover quite a bit of stuff right this.
We could say to be continued.
To be continued. We absolutely could. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us here. And you can go to the Challenge Podcast with John Chapman. You can go to whitedoveministries.net and find out more about what the ministry is doing, why we do this, why we incorporate religion and politics, why we do not deny Christ, why He is the forefront of our lives, and why I would advocate for any person who doesn't know Jesus Christ as their Savior, that in a simple fashion, that if you understand that you're a sinful man and you know that you're separate from God, there's one way to not be separated, and that is to believe in the work that Jesus did. By His stripes, we were healed. He bore those stripes before He went to the cross, so the healing came as His body was being torn apart in that. And if you don't know the story of Jesus, I would encourage you could go to whitedoveministries.net. You could go to the church around your corner and at least ask them. There might be a pastor right there, or some elders right there, or maybe just a welcomer right there saying, oh man, I can tell you about Jesus. Don't run from Him, and don't let what bad things have happened in your life keep you from seeking the Lord, finding Christ, and finding that restoration in the presence, in the blood, the cross, and the resurrection power of Jesus Christ. Everybody have a good day. God bless. It's good.